Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Prabhupada ki, Shri Panchatattva ki, Shri Radha Gokulananda ki, Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki, Shri Gaurnitai ki, all glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. So reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, verse 21, and the chapter is entitled The Opulence of the Absolute. So the format is to read one line and then in Sanskrit, and then you follow. So that's 10:21. Adityanamaham Vishnur Jyotisham Ravir Anshuman Marichir Marutamasmi Nakshatranamaham Shashi Adityanamaham Vishnur Jyotisham Ravir Anshuman Marichir Marutamasmi Nakshatranamaham Shashi Adityanamaham Vishnur Jyotisham Ravir Anshuman Marichir Marutamasmi Nakshatranamaham Shashi. Adityanamaham Vishnur Jyotisham Ravir Anshuman Marichir Marutamasmi Nakshatranamaham Shashi. Would you like to try? Adityanamaham Vishnur Jyotisham Ravir Anshuman Marichir Marutamasmi Nakshatranamaham Shashi. Do you want to try reading Sanskrit? No? Okay. Okay, so word for word. Adityanam, of the Adityas. Aham, I am. Vishnu, the Supreme Lord. Jyotisham, of all luminaries. Ravi, the sun. Amshuman, radiant. Marichi, Marutam, of the Maruts. Asmi, I am. Nakshatranam, of the stars. Aham, I am. Shashi, the moon. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Of the Adityas, I am Vishnu. Of lights, I am the radiant sun. Of the Maruts, I am Marichi. And among the stars, I am the moon. Purport. There are 12 Adityas, of which Krishna is the principal. Among all the luminaries shining in the sky, the sun is the chief. And in the Brahma Samhita, the sun is accepted as the glowing eye of the Supreme Lord. There are 50 varieties of wind blowing in space, and of these winds, the controlling deity, Marichi, represents Krishna. Among the stars, the moon is the most prominent at night, and thus the moon represents Krishna. It appears from this verse that the moon is one of the stars. Therefore, the stars that twinkle in the sky also reflect the light of the sun. The theory that there are many suns within the universe is not accepted by Vedic literature. The sun is one, and as by the reflection of the sun the moon illuminates, so also do the stars. Since Bhagavad Gita indicates herein that the moon is one of the stars, the twinkling stars are not suns but are similar to the moon. Om Jnanatimrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadhavaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamascha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrijabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhyubheva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you all for joining. Thank you to our special guests. And also thank you to everyone watching online. Please pray that whatever I speak can be of useful, beneficial, and purifying for all of us, especially myself as the teacher or the speaker. And please allow me to remember something that Brojan Prabhu has always reminded me, is that when anybody's speaking on the Vyasa-sun, it's not them speaking, it's Vyasadeva speaking through them. So it's something that I need to always remember when I'm giving classes. So, Bhagavad Gita 10.21, I'll just reread the translation and then we'll go through it. Of the Adityas, I am Vishnu. Of lights, I am the radiant sun. Of the Maruts, I am Marichi. And among the stars, I am the moon. So, so that everybody is on the same page with what this verse is, kind of the context behind the verse. So, in Bhagavad Gita chapter 10, from verses 16 to 18, Arjun's actually expressing three desires to Krishna. The first is for Krishna to show his divine opulence. The second is how one can always think of, remember, and just meditate on Krishna as the Supreme Lord. And the third is to showcase Krishna's mystic powers of opulence. And he specifically also adds at the end, the more I hear, the more I want to taste nectar of your words. So right off the back, setting the scene here for this verse, Arjun's already kind of indicating three things. One is that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Second is that from his perception, what we should be doing as part of one of our main thing for life is that we should be finding ways to always think of Krishna. And that doesn't necessarily mean that one just sits and meditates 24/7, goes to the Himalayas, etc. But how can Arjun see Krishna whilst he's fighting, etc., as well? Or how we can see Krishna whilst we're working with family, etc. And then the third thing, which I think is the most profound in setting the scene, is that the more one hears about Krishna, Krishna's form, qualities, pastimes, the more one gets attracted to Krishna. And so what Krishna is doing in these verses is now starting to just display a small ounce of his opulences to Arjun. To go, okay, I cannot explain myself fully because that would take eons. But the least I can do is just explain some of the prominent features. Explain how you can see me in the most prominent ways. So the first one, if we take them in turn. So of the Adityas, I am Vishnu. So who are the Adityas is the first natural question. Now, the backstory is, so there's a prominent person, Kashyapa Muni, and he has multiple wives, of which there are two, Aditi and Diti. So Aditi is the mother of all the demigods. So of which there's the best of 12, the 12 best are called the Adityas. Adityas meaning the sons or the children of Aditi, of which the best there are 12. So why is Krishna saying that he's Vishnu amongst them Adityas? So originally there were 11, and there's a story whereby actually a prominent demon, Bali Maharaj, he is a son of Diti, who is the mother of the demons. And what Bali Maharaj had basically done is that he had amassed so much power, so much strength, that he actually fought Indra, the king of the demigods, in his kingdom, and basically took over the kingdom. He controlled the kingdom, he took everything over. So now we have Kashyapa Muni, the father, or the husband of 2 wives. On one side, he's got Aditi, who's the mother of the demigods, and on the other side, he's got Diti, who's the mother of the demons. Kashyapa Muni was obviously in 2 sort of things. One wife is happy, the other is not so happy. So what ended up happening is that Aditi went and approached Kashyapa Muni that, this is what's happened. Now what do I do? How can I save my children? Because naturally, if somebody took over your home, somebody took over your kingdom, you're naturally going to be very upset about that. And you find ways to try and retake it back, repossess it, because it's rightfully yours. And Kashyapa Muni had suggested to Aditi that what she should do is she should worship Vishnu and fast for 12 days. And after that fasting, after the worship, Vamanadev was born. Vamanadev is one of the avatars or incarnations of Krishna, of Vishnu. So therefore that's where the Vishnu aspect comes from, whereby the son of Aditi is Vamanadev, who is Vishnu. So what did Vamanadev do? Here is Aditi trying to take back the kingdom from demons, Bali Maharaj, who stole it from her children. How is a son going to, a born child going to solve anything? Natural question. So Vamanadev, the actual terminology of Vamana means dwarf, right? So he's actually very small. Like we have new kids joining us in this session. So probably similar to Batman over there, similar size and height to him. And so as a dwarf, he's obviously very small. But he's also a Brahmana. So he goes up to Bali Maharaj, whilst Bali Maharaj is performing a yagna, a sacrifice, to create even more power and take over the entire creation. And Bali Maharaj, so this is a stark difference in that age, this age. Bali Maharaj, even though he was a demon, he was a very righteous demon. And what I mean by that is that he understood the morals and the principles behind how to treat a Brahmana, how to treat other people, etc. So here's a Brahmana coming up to his residence, and one of the things that we should do when a Brahmana approaches our residence is offer them in charity, offer them a place to sit, etc., etc. So he was naturally doing all of that. I'll keep the story short just for convenience, because I think there's a specific part which is probably more interesting for people in the verse. And so, he offers Vamanadev, okay, what would you like? I can give you anything. I mean, he's the king of heaven, he's the king of the universe, he can give anything. And he was very accommodating and understood his principles. Vamanadev asked for, actually, let me ask, what would people ask here? If you were in Vamanadev's position where the king of the universe said that he'd offer anything to you, what would you ask for? Peace. For yourself, from your wife, or from... Okay. Anyone else? What would you ask for? Very devotional. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Eternal life? Okay, fair enough. That's a fair point. Go on. Yeah. Does anybody know what Vamanadev asked for? Yes. Yes. Very, very well done. 3 footsteps of land. Let's count, right? dwarf, probably the size of my palm. Let's just start from here. 1, 2, 3, that much land. I could not do that. But he did anyway. Bali Maharaj was like, are you sure? Like, I could give you so much more. I can give you palaces, I can give you lots of women, whatever, Money, as he said. No, he was satisfied with 3 footsteps. So he gave 3 footsteps, and now here we go. Here's Vamanadev, who's going to take his first footstep. Expands beyond the universe. His first footstep takes over all of the heavenly kingdom. Gone. Half the opulence that Bali Maharaj has, gone. Second step, it extends all the way to the edges of the universe. Entire kingdom gone. Where does he keep his third footstep? The answer is on Bali Maharaj's head. So the aspect here is that Bali Maharaj, despite being a demon, he was very pious, he was very righteous, he understood his morals. He promised 3 footsteps of land. Okay, his entire kingdom got wiped out in 1. The entire existence got wiped out in the 2nd. All he had left with the 3rd was himself. So he happily gave himself to Vishnu, to Vamanadev. So that's point 1. Second one, of lights I am the radiant sun. So, simple one really. If you look at all the lights, like we've got chandeliers here, we've got lights, lamps. Now imagine the ceiling comes undone, the roof comes undone, and it's not evening time, but it's daytime, it's middle of summer, sunshine. Now, are you really going to see a difference between the chandeliers and the lights being on if the sun is shining? No, right? So the aspect here is that of all radiances, if the sun comes into the picture, the sun is naturally going to completely take over all of light. So here, what Krishna is saying is that he's the greatest source of light, basically. Third thing, of the Maruts, I am Marichi. So there's like two different ways we can see this. One is that as in the word for word, it's translated, not the word for word, sorry, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada refers to, there are 50 varieties of wind blowing in space. So that's one aspect we can take. So the Maruts are basically types of winds and stuff. And Marichi is the deity of the winds. So that's one aspect whereby of all the winds, he is the presiding deity, i.e. the one who controls, the one who is in charge. But there's another story, which is that actually Marichi is also Prajapati, or the father of Kashyapa Muni. And so being the father of, so Prajapati is basically the one who created or like gave birth to all the children, or the Praja basically. Praja meaning the population, right? So that's the other aspect, but you could see it this way, that he is Marichi of all the Maruts, so therefore he is the Prajapati of all population, meaning he is the seed-giving father of everyone. And now we come to the fun part of the verse, at least for me. Among the stars, I am the moon. And as we read in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, and I'll repeat for the benefit of everyone else. Among the stars, the moon is the most prominent at night, and thus the moon represents Krishna. It appears from this verse that the moon is one of the stars. Therefore, the stars that twinkle in the sky also reflect the light of the sun. The theory that there are many suns within the universe is not accepted by Vedic literature. I repeat, the theory that there are many suns within the universe is not accepted by Vedic literature. The sun is one, and as by the reflection of the sun, the moon illuminates. So also do the stars. Since Bhagavad Gita indicates herein that the moon is one of the stars, the twinkling stars are not suns, but are similar to the moon. That is, I don't know how much science people know in this room, but one of the big things is that the moon is not a star. The two are very different in science, modern physics, modern science. So I'm going to start this with a very orthodox question. How many planets do we have in this solar system? Okay, somebody says 8. Anybody else? Anybody disagree with 8? Do you want to count? Do you want to call them out? Do you want to call them out? Mercury, Venus, Mars, Earth, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. Wow, I'm surprised you know that. Okay, so are you going with 8 or are you going with 9? Okay, so you're sticking with 8. Okay. And we want to go with a different answer. I'm going to go with 9 just for the sake of like going against him. So who's right? Who's wrong? Who decides who is right, who is wrong? Let's ask that. Who decided that Pluto is not a planet? Did Krishna decide? Who decided? Scientists. Okay, so why did they decide that Pluto is not a planet? Okay, but Mercury is pretty small too. Mercury is small too, no? Okay. And we know the actual answer? Okay. So what defines a planet? Let's go with that. What defines a planet? Mercury doesn't have the moon. Okay, does Mars have gas? Does Mars have gas? Okay, I want somebody to get a mic for him. If somebody could, there is a mic there, a wireless mic. I'm not putting you on the spot. I literally do think that people online should hear the answer, because this is coming from, how old are you? 15. That's really impressive. There's a mic. It should just be standing like there. Just test it. Okay. If you... So you're going to define a planet based on its size. What was the other thing? So somebody mentioned moon, but we kind of said that. Oh, gases and land, right? Okay. Orbit the sun. Okay. So I'm going to put everybody on the spot here. You're believing that there are 8 planets in the solar system when you don't know what a planet means, you don't know the definition of the planet and solar system. Whew. I can't believe the Vedas, but I can believe scientists that I have no knowledge about. Whew. Anyway, that's nothing against the people in this room or online, but it shows that actually science is not science because it's faith. It still is faith. So, definition of planet, and I had to research all this myself, so I'm not like, anyway. They're defined by 3 things. In 2006, they defined a planet by 3 things. One is orbit around the sun, right? Second, sufficient mass for self-gravity to overcome rigid body forces. So basically what that means is that its gravity is strong enough for it to be close enough to be a sphere, right? Because if you imagine like a dense sort of compact space, then naturally everything that comes around it will form a sphere. And the third thing, it's cleared neighborhood around its orbit. What does that mean? So again, if you imagine a sphere and say there are asteroids, rocks, etc. around it, its gravity is strong enough that either it's pushed it away or it's come into it, right? So i.e. like there's this layer around the planet for rocks, asteroids, etc., not just to float around. So one thing that I noticed, but my point isn't on this, but one thing I noticed is that there's no measurements called out here. That might be because the source that I looked at doesn't have measurements in there. That is fair enough. But if I look at it, it's like, well, what defines neighborhood? You know, like 50 kilometers, 1 centimeter, whatever, you know? I mean, it might just be that the sources that I have access to don't give the numbers, so that's fair enough. So the reason why Pluto is not classified a planet in 2006, when they defined what planet means, is the third one, that it can't clear the neighborhood orbit. I.e., when rover, whatever it was, went close to Pluto, it saw that actually there were rocks, etc., floating in very close vicinity of Pluto. So now I have a problem here. The problem is that Pluto was termed a dwarf planet at the same time that they decided to term planet. They decided what the definition of a planet is based on the fact that Pluto has this ring of asteroids or whatever. Doesn't that sound very non-scientific? I'm putting everybody on the spot, and I'm fully down for all the curses to come at me, you know? But to me, science was fact-based. This is what it is, and then this is how you do this, that, and the other, and it all makes sense. But here we're looking at Pluto and going, hang on, if we define Pluto as a planet, then that means this over here is also a planet, that over there is also a planet, this, that, like hundreds of planets come into the picture. But to avoid that, for convenience, science has called Pluto a dwarf planet. Faith or religion, science is also a religion. I'm bold. Yes. Yeah. If you had something to say, because I think you did.
I was saying that now, like as you say, that planet is defined as 3 things. One was orbiting as well. So Pluto also orbits the sun. So basically, I think science has to be perfect that Pluto is planet or not. Basically now I think that Pluto is a planet, and Pluto needs to be counted as planet because these 3 things are already in Pluto. For example, it does orbit the sun. It does have weak gravity, but it still have gravity that can only can jump or like 10 feet. And the second is mass. You said it does have mass. Or
No,
like
no. The third thing is that it has enough gravity for it to pull its close things into it. Pluto doesn't have that.
Yeah.
That's why it's not a planet. So it meets the first one, it orbits the sun. It meets the second one, that it's got enough gravity to be a sphere, but it doesn't have enough gravity to pull other things that are close to it into it or push them away.
Yeah.
So it's not defined a planet, but the term of planet was also defined off the back of what they found out about Pluto. Up until that point, and you can research this, I'm fully down to be corrected on this, but Pluto was obviously considered a planet, thus the 9 planets in the solar system. But until they made this discovery that actually, if they consider Pluto a planet, then it's not strong enough to have its own gravitational thing. And what's the difference between Pluto and these other, like, I don't have the names, but there's other like asteroids and other bodies that are very similar. So then they went, okay, we need to define what a planet is, and then we can call it a non-planet.
I think Pluto is smaller than a moon of Jupiter or Saturn. There is a moon named Titan. I think it's one of Jupiter or Saturn's moon, but they say that Titan is bigger than Pluto. So if they basically say Pluto is a planet, then they also need to consider Titan as a planet as well, because Titan is bigger than Pluto.
That's a good point, yeah. Maybe the fact that it's a moon might have made it different, but yeah, it's an equal valid point. So my point with this is we look at this statement in the Bhagavad Gita that Sri Prabhupada's calling, well, Krishna's calling, I'll use the translation. Among the stars, I am the moon, and then Prabhupada in the purple is calling the moon a star as well. So we look at it from a scientific point of view, and we think, what nonsense, this Gita is nonsense, like how can I believe this? Surely there's either a mistake, maybe Prabhupada's not perfect, maybe Krishna's not God, and all these different things. But what we're basing it on is our faith that scientists know what they're talking about when they're talking. And what we fail to realize is that it's not a matter of faith in religion. Faith is everything that we do anyway, right? When you wake up in the morning, you go to work, you have faith that your car's going to work, that your alarm's going to work, and that you're going to wake up on the alarm, and you're going to reach your destination safely, that you're not going to have an accident. Like, at every moment in life, we have faith. However big or however small, we have faith. We're all sitting here today because we have faith that what we're going to listen to either is going to help us, or we're going to like it, or it's going to be of some sort of use of our time, or it's just a time pass for us, but we're just utilizing time. We're not just, like, otherwise, why would you say it? Why not just go and sit in the street, and just lie down in the street and just, like, I don't know, beg or whatever you want, So, yeah. Now it comes to, okay, well, do we have faith in what Prabhupada is saying? Why should we believe Prabhupada and Krishna over scientists? So the aspect here is that we should look at what we're having faith in. If we look at modern science, modern physics, when I was in school, when I was 15 years old, I'll use this as an example, we had textbooks, right? We all had textbooks when we were 15 years old, science textbooks. Could I give my textbook to you and you learn your syllabus based on my textbook? Why?
Because science is always evolving. It's evolving by time and time.
So it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
Changing. So science is always changing. Yesterday we thought the Earth was flat. Today we think it's a sphere. But when we look at the Vedas have always said that the Earth is a sphere. Eek. We never believed the Vedas, but we believed that the Earth was flat. Okay. Then we look at other things in the Vedas and we go, oh, it doesn't make sense. If we look at, say, animal dung, animal poo, oh, it's so dirty, like you should never touch it. But the Vedas still say that cow dung is very good. Oh, like I'm not going to touch that. Oh, and then scientists, researchers go and look into the properties of cow dung, and oh, it's a very great antiseptic. Oh, okay, let's use it. Why not just believe the Vedas from the start? Like, you're going to have faith in something anyway, so why not just have faith in the Vedas, which you can actually go through scrutinizingly and try and understand. I'm not saying, no, don't do those research. I'm not saying that science is bad. I'm not saying that scientists have done terrible stuff. But my point is that what is science doing and why are they doing it? They should think about that more. Okay, we want to explore space. We have so-and-so theories. Fine, that's great. But why not look at the Vedas and go, okay, the Vedas is saying this, which is a bit controversial. Let's investigate that and develop technology to investigate that, to prove or disprove the Vedas, because clearly Vedic principles are showing time and time again that actually they have been correct this whole time. The Vedas and spiritual knowledge does not change with time. That is the foundation of spiritual knowledge. They do not change with time. If you picked up the Bhagavad Gita from when it was first written to now, it would not have changed. Yes, there might be different translations. There might be people that have changed them, tweaked them. Some of them Bonafide, some of them not. But the foundation, the principles have not changed. And that you can go to any spiritual path, and that is the truth. Then you have to understand, okay, what defines a Bonafide scripture? We won't get into that. But that's what we should be thinking about. Well, okay, I have faith in science, but science has time and time again proved me wrong. or they themselves have gone, oh, we're learning as well, so, you know, what we thought yesterday isn't true today, what we think today isn't true tomorrow. So why not find something that is true from the beginning and understand that, okay, we have a short time of life, max 100 years or so on. Why not just go to the source and understand how we need to work and live? And now let's reconcile it in a nice, forceful, non-aggressive way. So if we look at the Sanskrit, the term used for stars is nakshatranam. So the other thing that you can appreciate is whenever we translate between different languages, there's always something, there's a special term that's used, semantic data loss. Semantic data loss. And what that means is that the definition of the translation, the definition of the word sometimes gets lost in translation. And I think everybody here knows more than one language, and you can appreciate that if you're going from English to something, like Gujarati, Hindi, Arabic, whatever, there's no one-to-one match. And equally, especially from Eastern languages to English, it's even worse in terms of the data loss. So nakshatranam, the best and closest translation to that is stars. Yeah. So I'm not saying anything there. I think I know what Prabhupada's written is correct. But if you look at understand what nakshatra actually is, then you can also see it as the lunar or the celestial mansions in astrology, right? So it's just like different configurations, I guess, in a way, in the sky of the stars, etc., etc. So what does it mean when somebody's saying, among the stars I am the moon? And let's assume that the moon is not a star, an actual figure of a star. Well, similar to the other ones, it's more of a genitive sort of case whereby you've got two things. You could either use this genitive case to basically explain something that's outstanding, like the best among things, or you can use it in relationship, that of these I am this, right? So in the first case, the Adityas, I am Vishnu. That was used in relationship, that of the Adityas, I am one of them, being Vishnu, who is the best of them. Of lights, I'm the radiant sun. Again, of all types of light, the sun is the prominent, and that is the one that I am. In this case, we can see it in the other way, which is that, in the same way, that among the stars, I am the moon. So if we look at the celestial luminaries, then moon is the most prominent luminary. So that's one way we could see it. Or another way you could see it as well, going by astrology, all these nakshatras, all the stars, are actually subordinate to the king, and the king is Chandra. And for those of you who kind of understand the Sanskrit, Chandra is moon. So in this case, what Sri Prabhupada is saying and Krishna is saying is, among the stars I am the moon, meaning that of the stars, I am their master, the moon. So that's another way we could see it. And there is a case, nakshatra is also another name for the daughters of Daksha. I won't go into the history, just conscious of time as well. But the husband of those daughters was called Chandra. So that's where that aspect comes from, that of the wives, being the nakshatra, I am their husband, their master, the Chandra, the moon. So I will end there. I welcome questions, comments, feedback, challenges. Anyone? Yeah. So can we get the mic? The mic. Because it's nice, right? It's nice.
Yeah, Prabhu, what I need to say is I agree with lots of stuff because our human cycle is very limited. it's limited to so many years. And within the Veda, and if you look at the history predominantly and the evidence that is there, it cannot be disputed. I mean, over and over again. I mean, even if you look at the Kurukshetra, where the Bhagavad Gita has been mentioned, where there is a war that happened, and there is evidence today in within the science community as well. They have proven that this earth has had these upheavals which was in the past, and over and over again it proves the things that there is evidence, enough evidence, there is scientifically, even mathematically, there is so much. I mean, we can probably go on to even mention, even Hanuman Chalisa is a distance between the planets has been mentioned, and they're proven today that those distances are they cannot be disputed. So we, like you mentioned, we have got this rich heritage which is for everyone in the earth to share. By the same token, we should look at it and study it as well. And I think science community, scientific community today realizes that, and it's fantastic. Really, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
No, you raise a very valid point. Even Vedic sort of aspects, historical events, etc., are being proven. I'm just thinking back when you were mentioning the whole Kurukshetra war and how scientists are kind of proving and seeing that this did happen. What comes to my mind is a mathematical book that I read when I was in my year 11, year 12, right? So the maths book, so background is that for university I wanted to study maths and physics. And for that you have to read, blah, 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 like show you're doing extracurricular stuff. Not that I, anyway. So as part of that maths book, one thing that was mentioned there was like mind-blowing for me. What was mentioned is that there was, I don't remember the dates and stuff, but they had found a flying plane, which is very similar to aircrafts, from thousands of years ago. That's not in a religious book, that is in a maths reading book with sources and references and so on. So then we think about like the Wright brothers and all these, the whole 18th century, 19th century, whatever it is. And we're going like, oh my God, like they create planes. Well, hello, like Vedas tell us how to create aviation. Like the Vedas actually, I'm kidding you not, if you want to go through the Vedas, if you understand them and read them, and you have the intellect to kind of process it, you can create aviation, you can create flying planes by understanding the Vedas. This isn't a maths book that we're learning all this, and yet today, like whenever you speak to scientists, they're like, oh no, like modern technology is so advanced, no civilization in history was this advanced, but it's like bogus. And yeah, I'm calling scientists, well, I'll be careful here when I'm saying this, but I'm calling modern scientists who don't appreciate and acknowledge and respect Vedic culture bogus. I'm being very bold. But it's a fact. They have admitted that there are flying planes, etc., from thousands of years ago, but they won't bring it to light because then that breaks faith in science. And I was speaking to a colleague, not here, about something similar with researchers and stuff like that, whereby actually researchers found something, I can't remember what it is, but it was related to like the Egyptian pyramids and stuff. Archaeologists, etc., they found certain things that went against what scientists had basically spoken out to everyone, but they didn't want to investigate it further because if they went further and all this was true, then that means that everything they've said was false, and therefore to basically not look wrong, they basically hid it and slid it in the carpet, etc., etc. So again, I reiterate, I'm not saying that science or like scientists are bad, wrong, they're terrible people. We're all misguided in some places of life. It's about like, are we having the right direction in life? If we imagine ourselves as a boat and the lighthouse being the beacon that we're trying to follow, right? Now the question is, well, you're the boat, you should be navigating according to the lighthouse. But what we're doing with science is saying that the lighthouse can move as well, So every time you want to go closer to the lighthouse, which is your ultimate destination, right, for safety, land, etc., we're saying, oh, today it's over here, but hang on, no, we're like miles off, so I'm going to go over here, so now you need to change as well to go over here. But the Vedas have stood the test of time. They're fixed. The lighthouse is fixed. I don't know of any land-based lighthouse that moves. Maybe there is. But why do we want the lighthouse to move according to where we're traveling in the boat, instead of thinking, hang on a minute, I'm just a small boat. Let me navigate my life according to the lighthouse. So my point here was that we should think, okay, where are we placing our faith? Is that faith something I should have faith in? Has it stood the test of time? If it hasn't, then maybe find something, think about it even more, find where you can put your faith, which has stood the test of time. And once you've found it, understand that it's science of self-realization. It's Krishna consciousness for a reason. We're developing our consciousness to understand with intelligence, not blind following. So scrutinize the scriptures, scrutinize the Bhagavad Gita, scrutinize any of the books. Understand what it's saying. Only if you don't understand, go to somebody who has more knowledge, brahmacharis, senior devotees, etc. We've spent so many years in this life, just this life alone, just following what science has told us. Every year, something new happens. Every year, it changes. Are you not fed up or like bored of that? Like, I just want something fixed in life. Personally speaking, I'm not saying everybody has this. But personally, I just feel like I should have something fixed. I should have a clear goal and clear direction in life. And if I don't have that, then like I'm always going to be in anxiety, because it's like, well, I'm doing this today, but tomorrow they'll turn around and say, oh, this isn't the best way to do it, it's this way. So then, okay, I have to relearn everything, go according to that. Like, we've got youngsters, we've got elderly, like, it's never too late to think, okay, let me properly find a beacon that is stable and fixed, and invest time in that. So yes, we are over time, but any other questions, comments? Okay. I apologize if I've said anything which is too harsh, wrong, incorrect. Oh, yes. Do you want to take the mic?
Basically, I have a question about yugas. Kali Yuga, Satya Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, there are lots of yuga. But I want to this is Kali Yuga, like this is the last of it, the last of the yuga. Yeah, fourth of the yuga, and it's the last. So I just want to know that how is this all cycles work, and what happens in all cycles, because I heard that in like Satyug, people are going to be more religious, people are going to be live longer life expectations. But in like Kali, it's happening the same, because of technology. Like if we like move on to modern technologies, our lifespan is going to be increased as well. So also like in some sacred text, Krishna said in Kali, people are only going to live up to 50 years. But now the average is 70 or 72 or more than 70. So I'm basically thinking that how does this Kali Yuga and Yuga Chakra work? How does this all work?
Okay, so I'll tackle one point first. So please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that Krishna said 100 years, not 50 years. So just a technicality. That might be wrong on. But in terms of the cycles, yeah, so it's a really nice question, actually. Like, how does the cycles work, and what do the cycles mean? So, yeah, there's 4 yugas. And what happens is we go through from Satya to Kali, and then devastation, and then rinse and repeat, right? And I won't go into all the technicalities, both because I'm not qualified to kind of talk about it properly in detail, as well as because you'll just go along. But yeah, ultimately it basically depends on Brahma's lifetime, as well as then Kshirodakshaya, Vishnu's breathing, and so on and so forth. So that's like the cycle. In Satya Yuga, like, yes, okay, you're right, with modern technology, we are finding that lifespan is increasing, a couple of years, 10, 20 years, whatever it is. But in Satyayug, they used to live for thousands of years, right? Is our modern technology ever going to be good enough to expand our life that long?
Not too much. Like, because
Right.
of after, if we like increasing, people are gonna be human cyborg. Like, it's how the science like predicts.
Yeah, our current lifespan is around 100 years, right? It's based on like the number of breaths that we take and stuff like that. There's like there's Shastric Praman around it as well as science behind it. The thing is that with modern technology, yes, we can expand our lifespan by however many years, but we're never going to get to a stage whereby we can live for thousands of years. And even if modern science could do that, our brains, our physical like nature would not allow us to live that long, because just apologies, but if you look at like the elderly amongst our communities today, they're struggling with their minds. Oh, yes, okay, with modern technology, etc., years will expand and maybe that will go to later in life and stuff. But our lives are so full of anxiety, right? Every moment, you think that you're going to solve this problem in life, like you're 15 years old, so you might not have seen much, but say school homework, right? Once you finish one homework, the next day you go into school, okay, we're going to give new homework. You know, it's a constant cycle. You're never going to get free of that of anxiety in this material world. So yeah, I don't know if that answers like your question or not, in terms of understanding.
Yeah, I got the answer.
Okay, cool. That's good. Yeah, yeah. 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 Yeah, it comes down to like what is the purest activity that we can do in each yuga, because when you're living for thousands of years, you can do something like tapasya, meditation. You know, standing like we've all seen pictures and probably like Mahabharata or not Mahabharata, but like series and stuff with people standing in the Himalayas, 1 foot, you know, meditating Om or Vishnu, Shiva, whatever it is. That is possible then, because to do that sort of meditation, this is going to get a bit too much actually, but anyway, I'll simplify it. If you imagine our time scale, right? 1 second, 2 second, 3 second. The higher planets, they also have 1 second, 2 second, 3 second. But if you married them up, their 1 second is like our years, you know? So in order to even get their glimpse on us for 1 second, we have to do something persistently for so many hundreds of years, thousands of years, whatever it is. We can't do that now because we're only living for 100 years, right? So that's kind of out the window. You can still try, right? But it's not going to be fruitful. So the next yuga is sacrifices, yagnas. In those days, money was very opulent because people were more righteous, as Prabhu was mentioning. The demigods were giving sufficient food, water, you know, rain, all these different things that we need to live. It was in abundance, you know, abundance meaning that there was a lot of it present. So in that era, you could perform sacrifices, which, according to Shastra, requires so much input. Horse sacrifices, whatever. But now, you know, max we can do is something like, you know, if we push it, then we can give our salary of, I don't know, I think the average in the UK is like £27,000, pre-tax, pre-NI, etc. Right? Let's say 30K that you can put in. What's that going to get you? Like, you know, it's not going to get you much in reality. And then the next yuga, it is temple worship. You know, constructing big temples and then going to the temple, worshipping, etc. We do that today. You know, I mean, all of these we do to some degree today, but the most prominent in Kali Yuga, the most readily available, is chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. People, and I've had this with my mom, like, oh, like, people, the Hare Krishna is made up the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, but actually it's written in the Vedas. It's written in one of the Upanishads. I can't remember. I think it starts with a K or a U, the Upanishad's name. But yeah, it's written there that this is like a Bonafide mantra, you know. So we take that. So that's why devotees, you know, those who are initiated or looking to be initiated, they'll chant 16 rounds of the Mahamantra on beats. We do kirtan, right? Chanting and glorifying the holy name, glorifying Krishna, is what purifies us and our existence, so we can exit this world of anxiety and go to Vaikuntha, which is without anxiety.
And like now I have like 2 questions, but let's make the first question. My first question is, as we know that nowadays, like in Hinduism, let's just say like there are some of the traditions like sacrificing animals, like for Kali Mata they sacrifice a goat or any animal. Did the God says that sacrifice an animal to please me? Did God said that?
$1 million question. What do you think?
Huh?
What do you think?
I don't think, because in even Bhagavad Gita it says that killing an animal for our own sake, killing someone for our own sake is bad.
Okay.
Then why are we like killing animals for God? Why are we sacrificing them?
Okay. So remember, like about 2 minutes ago, I mentioned that in Dwapara Yuga they used to perform sacrifices, including horse sacrifices. Do you think that was not religious?
If we like basically says, I think not, because in Bhagavad Gita it says killing someone for our own sake is bad.
Okay. The Vedas still say, because they don't change, that horse sacrifice is a thing. Kator. Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Kator. Mahamantra. Kator. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. But yeah, so that's in the Vedas. So are we saying that the Vedas are wrong?
No,
You're
I'm
with
not saying.
devotees. Okay, no. So to clarify, I'm just teasing you. The thing here is that, yes, they're mentioned in the Vedas, horse sacrifice, this sacrifice, etc. But they are definitely not for the Kali Yuga. And the reason for that is that those sacrifices were not to kill the animals. Those sacrifices were in place. So if you had a sacrifice, a yagna that was taking place, to test that the brahmanas were qualified as brahmanas, they would perform a sacrifice of an animal. And what they do is, okay, let's say this is, actually, let's use this. Let's say this was the animal, right? You kill the animal, but the animal has a soul, which you know about, right? So what they do is they take that soul from an old body and give it to a new body, give it a new body, basically. So that's really why, like, a lot of the yagnas would have so much, like, input in terms of, like, opulences that you put in, like yagnas, ghee, whatever it is, because that creates the body for the next person. The body for that sacrifice, basically. And then all the other sacrifices. So that's what the actual Vedas would say, is that you test the brahmanas. Now, why do you need to test brahmanas? What is the test of brahmanas? It's that Sanskrit as a language is, by definition, Devanagari is the actual term for Sanskrit. Devanagari is Deva, is gods, demigods. Nagari is the word. So it's the word of the demigods. It's the speech of the demigods. And what Devanagari is basically such a, like, high-level, elevated sort of sound vibration, let's call it, right? That it goes beyond the normal mundane sort of language. That's why I'm sure many of you had this experience whereby you might see a verse or read a verse like 5-10 times, but you like remember it pretty well. Like, you might not remember it perfectly, but you remember it pretty well. But with other languages, it's actually usually very difficult to remember, like, even 5-6 words. But anyway, so because it's powerful as Sanskrit itself, if you pronounce it perfectly, right, then that's the potency that gives you the power to take life from one being and put it into another, give it a different body. That was the test of the Brahmanas. So yes, animal sacrifice exists in the Vedas, but it was never for sense gratification for ourselves. It was to test the Brahmanas. If they couldn't bring the animal back to life, they weren't qualified to be a Brahmana. I don't know what happened, whether, another Brahmana who's qualified then gave life, etc., or if that poor soul basically just lost its body. I don't know the details there. But yeah, that was the test. So nowadays, when we take it, it's misinterpretation. It's taking something and saying, I'm going to take what I want out of it and ignore everything else. It's like saying, you really like your logo on your top. Yeah, that logo. You really like the logo. I'm not saying you do, but example. Yeah, you really like the logo. So you're going to take the logo out of your shirt, scrap the shirt, and you're just going to keep the logo. That doesn't work right. You have to take the whole thing. You can't tell the shopkeeper, you can't tell your dad that, hey, I really want that logo. Can you buy the logo for me, but not the T-shirt? You take the whole package. That's when it's worth it.
And second question is, in Ramayana, for example, take Ravan, he did devotion, he chanted Lord Shiva or Brahma's name for lots of years. And also in Vedas, there are lots of asuras and some sadhus and some people who chanted God's name for years and years.
Yeah.
For example, standing in one foot or just sitting in one position without even eating or doing nothing, just sitting and chanting God's name. So, for example, how could they survive without food? They stand for 100 years. How could they survive? For example, take Ravana. He was literally standing in one foot. How, without even eating anything, how could he survive and chanting God's name?
I'll give you another one. I think it's Hiranyakashipu. Please do correct me. Hiranyakashipu was standing in one place for, I don't know how long, thousands of years, to the extent that you see all this skin, the muscle, the flesh, gone. In his place where he was performing tapasya, ants were crawling on him, eating away at him, and you wouldn't see him, you'd just see a mountain of ants. Who can do that? So going back to your question, how is it possible? So this is where there is a big difference between Kali Yuga and those yugas. In this yuga as well, there is possibility, there are, you believe, you don't believe, faith, no faith, but there are yogis who kind of do something on similar sort of standpoint. And actually, not even just spiritual yogis, but also just people who want to try and do yoga sort of thing, have some sort of mystical powers, they kind of do that. You can actually live without food, etc., etc. The art of that is to be able to get the nutrients from within your body, if you're going no breath tapasya, or at least from the air, which is what most people do. So you control your inner body so well that, okay, so why do you eat food? You eat food because you need this nutrition, that nutrition, that nutrition. Where does it come from? Right? Where does all that come from? It doesn't come from the food itself, right? Because the food also grows, blah, blah, blah. It comes from the environment, right? Material nature. So the art is to be able to manipulate your inner body enough to capture those elements that your body needs to then sustain life. So there is a prominent example of Dhruva Maharaj in the Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, where he goes through stages of performing more rigid tapasya. Like first he would just, I don't know the order, and nor do I know the details, but it's like first he would eat a few grains, then he'd not eat grains, he'd just survive on air, and then he wouldn't even breathe, I think, for a month or 2 months, and then Vishnu gave darshan, So it's a matter of control, determination, etc. It is not recommended in this day and age. You would struggle to do it, and even if you manage to do it, what are you achieving by doing that? Right? Because as we said before, you need to do it for a long time to please the demigods, to give them 1 second, look at you for 1 second. You can't do that. People do it nowadays because they just want to be mystic. They want material prosperity. But what does material prosperity give you? If you got £100 in your bank balance, or if you've got £1,000 in your bank balance, what's the difference? You're going to look at the £100 and think, how can I spend it? You're going to look at the £1,000 thinking, how can I spend it? You might just buy more stuff, but then you're also going to lament over it when you lose it. Like your dad might buy a brand new Mercedes car tomorrow. He'll be like, oh, yes, I'm like, come son, we'll take you on a ride in a brand new Mercedes. The next day he's going to be like, oh yeah, I'm just driving to work. And the next day he's going to be constantly looking out the window. Oh, like, is there a scratch on my Mercedes? Probably like he'll spend more time with the car than with you or his wife. I've seen that happen actually. So, or you with a toy, you might get a brand new toy. You'll be like, I really want this, Papa. I really want this. I really want this. I really want this. And then you get it. The next day it's like, oh yeah, I played with it yesterday. I don't want to play with it today.
Yeah.
That's material life.
This is how people's satisfaction works. Like if you want this thing, we get it, but we just played it how much we want, and then we just leave it.
Yeah, because we all are seeking for happiness, and we think happiness comes from the objects that we acquire or the relationships in this world that inevitably die out in some way, shape, or form. Either bad blood, right? Parents having an argument, they split up, divorce. Or we don't like our parents, therefore I don't want to live with them, blah, 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 whatever it is. Or objects, etc. And we think that gives us happiness. We endeavor for it. Not saying it's wrong, but you endeavor for it. You find a small piece of happiness and a lot of suffering with it. But you still try again and again and again because you think, okay, maybe this person was wrong. I shouldn't have engaged with this person. Maybe this toy, this car, remote control car was not where my happiness. Maybe my happiness is in that piano over there. Okay, maybe not the piano. Maybe it's in the guitar. Oh, maybe it's not music at all. Maybe it's a plane or whatever it is. You just keep changing because we don't know how to find happiness. We don't know what real happiness is. So if we want to be happy, we should think about everything that we've done in life and go, okay, like, I've tried this sort of relationship, that hasn't helped me. I've tried family, it's helped me. I'm like really looking forward to like spending time with family. I think they're like, this is where my happiness is. But then you think about it more and it's like, okay, tomorrow they're going to pass away. Or tomorrow, I've got bad blood with my cousin. Maybe that will happen with my parents or whatever it is. So it's not that we say no to any of those things, but the art is how do we bring the happiness into the relationships? How do we bring happiness into our current life? And it goes back to the beacon example. If your beacon's constantly moving, your happiness or your perception of where happiness lies is going to constantly move. What you think is going to give you happiness will constantly change because the target, the beacon, right, the lighthouse is constantly moving. But if your lighthouse is fixed, you know that whatever you do in life, you're 15 years old, you've got a lot of life still left to live. You can go, okay, I want to find out what that lighthouse is. I want to learn about the lighthouse. And then, okay, I'm going to try and mold my life in a way that I can live life, but keep moving towards the lighthouse. And I don't know if you've ever heard this example, but if you imagine a plane that's flying in the air, it has a flight path, right? From London to India or to New Delhi. It has a flight path. How much do you think it stays on that flight path? I don't remember the numbers. I don't know if anybody does. No? Okay. I think it's something like only 70% of the time it's actually on its flight path. Otherwise it's doing this. It's always trying to get along, like, oh, it's gone too far east. Okay, let me bring it back to the flight path. Oh, now I've gone too much this way. Let me go that way. You're constantly moving to try and align with the flight path because the flight path, it's not about staying on the flight path. It's about moving in the direction of the flight path. And as long as, you can't control where you've started from, but as long as you end where the flight path ends, that's all that really matters. But the closer to the flight path you are, the better your life will be because now, you're on track, right? So you're 15 years old. Right now, your focus is on studies and developing a bit of spirituality, right? A bit of Krishna consciousness, which, father? No? Okay. whoever your parents are have done an amazing job at raising you. I kid you not. So all glories to your parents. All glories to you, mother. Okay, very nice. But no, it's absolutely amazing because, I mean, our kids these days do need to learn how to live life. Otherwise, what's going to happen is that we, as parents, we only just came to Casey or whatever it is. We didn't get Casey when we were born and children and stuff. So most of our life we've lived thinking, okay, like, I don't know what I'm doing in life. I'll endeavor for a wife, I'll endeavor for a girlfriend, I'll endeavor for children, I'll endeavor for career. But it's never really
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. এই নাম গায় গোরাচন্দ মধুর সদে, এই নাম গায় গোরাচন্দ মধুর সদে, হরে কৃষ্ণ হরে কৃষ্ণ, কৃষ্ণ কৃষ্ণ হরে হরে, এই নাম গায়ে গোরাচন্দ মধুর স্বরে, এই নাম গায়ে গোরাচন্দ মধুর স্বরে, হরে কৃষ্ণ কৃষ্ণ, কৃষ্ণ কৃষ্ণ হরে হরে, হরে রাম 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 হরে হরে, হরে কৃষ্ণ হরে কৃষ্ণ, কৃষ্ণ হরে হরে, হরে কৃষ্ণ হরে কৃষ্ণ, কৃষ্ণ কৃষ্ণ হরে হরে, হরে রাম হরে রাম, রাম রাম হরে হরে, হরে রাম হরে রাম, রাম হরে হরে, কৃষ্ণ হরে কৃষ্ণ, কৃষ্ণ কৃষ্ণ হরে হরে, হরে কৃষ্ণ হরে কৃষ্ণ, কৃষ্ণ কৃষ্ণ হরে হরে, হরে রাম হরে রাম, রাম রাম হরে হরে, রাम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम हरे राम, राम राम हरे हरे, हरे राम हरे राम, राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण हरे कृष्ण, कृष्ण कृष्ण Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Hare, Bala Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Bala Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. এই নাম গায় গোরাচন্দ মধুর সদে, এই নাম গায় গোরাচন্দ মধুর সদে, হরে কৃষ্ণ, হরে কৃষ্ণ, কৃষ্ণ কৃষ্ণ, হরে হরে, এই নাম গায়ে গোরাচন্দ মধুর স্বরে, এই নাম গায়ে গোরাচন্দ মধুর স্বরে, হরে কৃষ্ণ, হরে কৃষ্ণ, কৃষ্ণ কৃষ্ণ, হরে হরে, হরে রাম, হরে রাম, রাম রাম, হরে হরে, হরে কৃষ্ণ, হরে কৃষ্ণ, কৃষ্ণ কৃষ্ণ, হরে হরে, হরে কৃষ্ণ, হরে কৃষ্ণ, কৃষ্ণ কৃষ্ণ, হরে হরে, হরে রাম, হরে রাম, রাম রাম, হরে হরে, হরে রাম, হরে রাম, রাম, হরে Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Sila Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,